I'm Carol Ann Riddell, and welcome to Arts in the City. We've got a terrific show in store for you, and we kick things off with a legend of the dance world. Bill T. Jones is one of the most acclaimed and recognized choreographers of our time, and this year his company marks its 40th year. Lisa Beth Kovitz sat down with Mr. Jones himself to talk about the importance of dance and the company's latest work entitled Curriculum.
Every piece that we make is asking questions that are important to me, existential questions about being alive, my beliefs, and what this company project has been for now 40 years. So Curriculum is that in spades.
So what are the ideas and questions posed in Curriculum?
I was really impressed hearing that young Greta Thunberg say, "How dare you?" And I thought she was speaking to me. I also heard at that time an African philosopher whose name is Achille Mbembe, who was a guest lecturer at the University of Bergen in Norway. They asked him, what did people from the North need to know about the South to be good global citizens? And I thought, what do I need to know about the world? How can all of those things that dance does, and my work in particular, how can it be at the service of a big question that we're all facing? What about being well-informed and able to face this uncertain future? Now, that's a mouthful, I know, but that's what the piece wants to be about.
So then, how does movement make meaning?
That is the question, isn't it? I believe that movement is itself like color in painting. How does the color red make meaning? It has to do with how it's applied, what the image is or is not. You, the public, are watching these beautiful, seductive movements, but it's like watching the news and seeing a ticker tape underneath it of something else going on in the world. Now, is that assigning meaning to the movement, or the movement is part of a matrix of meaning, which is what I'm interested in?
There are so many nouns attached to the name William Tass Jones. Does any one description resonate for you more than another?
Survivor is pretty good. Survivor, and I'm a lover. I mean, lovely. I mean, I love my husband, but I mean, I think I love people. I'm a mean son of a bitch, but I think I love people. Not necessarily like them, I think I love them. So I'm a lover, and I'm a thinker.
Curriculum was delayed and the theater lost years of box office revenue, but through it all, Bill T. Jones' Arnie Zane company continued to pay their employees. And so, on behalf of the whole city, I asked the survivor.
Now, how do you keep moving? How do we keep moving?
How do you keep on keeping on?
These are complicated feelings. How do we carry them? How do we...
I shall not be moved. I shall not be moved, just like a tree planted by the water. That's how I do it. It's corny, isn't it? In an interview, I start singing. You're talking to an artist, not a politician. You're not talking to a doctor. This is how an artist does it. What does the moment call for, and can you meet the moment? Our season of anniversaries has been hard, fought for. We are so proud that we are, quote, still here.
For Arts in the City, this has been Lisa Beth Kovitz.
Next up, Abby Ashola introduces us to a student using a camera to document everyday life, from the Dominican Republic to Washington Heights.
In a way, I know what I want people to feel when they see my work, but at the same time, I want them to come out with their own experiences.
Jordi Perez's photography has been described as dreamlike. Such praise for the BMCC student's work came after he visited the Dominican Republic in 2019 and began taking shots of the scenic landscape. At the time, he wasn't comfortable with shooting people, but the lifestyle moved him to try his hand.
Being there, I realized that there was like such a beauty to it. Like I knew it was gonna be beautiful, but I the people just brought out the photos, and it's on film, so I can't really see them, but just go looking through the lens, I'm like I know this is a good shot. And if it wasn't even, like, I just felt something.
From there, he began to formulate Morir Soñando, a thoughtful photo series that captures the simplicity and beauty of his homeland. Morir Soñando means to die dreaming, and it's the given name for a popular drink in the DR. One of Jordi Perez's favorite photos from his series is of these two little boys.
Like, I saw the roses and I saw them right next to it, and I didn't have my camera. I ran inside to get my camera, and I'm like, I didn't even tell them to move. I was just like, they're gonna keep talking, they're playing, let me just run, get the camera. I just think like the simplicity of them sitting there talking, laughing, enjoying themselves, it's just beautiful.
Another of his favorite.
It's of my uncle's like backyard, and it's huge, but it's my mom, my sister, my aunt, and a couple of other family members that still live in that place under a mango tree. That photo, again, I think what I like most about these photos is like the simplicity of them just relaxing. Because in New York City, we're like all about the hustle, but when we get to Dominican Republic, we're just like resting and enjoying the time with each other.
And though New York has a different feel and pace from the DR, his goal is to capture aspects of Dominican culture in Washington Heights, where he lives.
The people, I think I didn't really appreciate the people or the community that was surrounded around Washington Heights when I was younger. I would go to a bodega and I would buy my chips or whatever, and then I would come back. But now I feel like I've created a relationship with some people around Washington Heights. Like my flower lady, she's around the corner. And even if I don't have money for like Mother's Day, I didn't have cash on me, and she's just like, yeah, take it to your mom. People in Washington Heights, which I hope to work with in the future, they're just like so joyful and happy about life. I think I want to move that into like future sets, and I know that I want that kind of energy on like any project I work on.
Such clear ideas for a young talent who fell in love with photography after realizing he didn't want to pursue filmmaking full time. His dream shifted on the set of his very first photo shoot.
Like my mind was blown. I was like, you could do this with lighting, and you could do this with the camera, and you could do this with makeup. It was like an aha moment. It was amazing.
He plans to continue in film, and so far he's had the privilege of working on TV sets like the popular FX series Pose. But taking his photography to the next level is his ultimate goal. For Arts in the City, Abby Ashola.
I am a dreamer, and I will never stop fighting for that dream.
I grew up just like you, pledged allegiance to the red, white, and blue, and I'd have been through and through what I know to be true. This is my home. I'm not alone. We are your builders and planners, your artists and dancers, lawyers and lawyers, your biggest supporters, American denizens.
Now to a book the New York Times calls a daring debut, a novel about a group of friends and their immigrant families in New York City. Ernie DeMillo spoke with the author of Brown Girls.
I am the oldest. Yay, you and me, I love it.
We met at You and Me, the new bookstore in Chinatown filled with books by authors Daphne Palasi Andreades have long admired.
It's a bookstore that's filled with books by people of color and by immigrants and other marginalized groups.
And it's where you'll find her new debut novel, Brown Girls on the Shelves. Andreades is a proud brown girl from Queens. Her book is inspired by her own immigrant upbringing.
If you really want to know, we are the color of 7-Eleven root beer, the color of sand at Rockaway Beach when it blisters the bottoms of our feet.
It's a coming-of-age story told through the collective we of brown girls, Chinese, Haitian, Dominican, Filipino, Bangladeshi, Panamanian, and more.
Color of soil, color of the charcoal pencils our sisters use to rim their eyes, color of grilled hamburger patties. In writing The We, I was really interested in capturing this chorus of women's voices. Again, women of color across different diasporas, because that was my experience growing up in Queens.
Andreades was born and raised in Queens. Her parents immigrated there in the 1990s from the Philippines. She majored in English and psychology at Borough and was a Sidney Harman Writer-in-Residence Program Fellow. In her book, she thanks her 2 Borough professors for introducing her to poetry, building the foundation she would use in her later writings.
I studied poetry before turning to fiction, at CUNY actually. And I had 2 really incredible professors there who are poets and academics. The first is Grace Shulman, and the second is Eli Shipley. They were just incredibly formative to writing brown girls. And thinking about those lessons in poetry of like really focusing on sensory details, being as concrete as possible in my writing and in my language.
But the spark that inspired her novel came later while she was a second-year MFA student at Columbia.
One of my mentors, Elisa Chappelle, said this incredible quote in class one day that just kind of sparked my imagination, I think. And she quoted Toni Morrison, and the Toni Morrison quote was, "If there is a book that you want to read, but it has not been written yet, then you must be the one to write it." And I went home that day and I thought, what is the book that I desperately want to read, but I feel has not been represented? What am I hungry to read?
And the brown girls and their stories came pouring out of her fingers.
I started writing into the story of immigrant children, women of color, just a story that completely centered them and celebrated them in all their beauty and complexity.
The book not only celebrates brown girls like her, but also is a love letter to Queens.
I really did want to make people feel or like conjure this feeling of like totally entering into this incredibly unique, vibrant, eclectic world. So it was essential for me to try and capture the different languages, the different cultures and communities living side by side, people and immigrants from all different diasporas. That was really key and important to me to representing Queens.
Her novel was published just 4 days into 2022, and the glowing reviews poured in. The New York Times called it daring. The book made must-read lists.
I feel like pursuing this path was more than my parents could have envisioned and more than I thought for myself. And there's something about like being able to dream big.
For Arts in the City, I'm Ernabelle DeMillo.
There's no question about it. Our hometown boasts some of the most iconic streetscapes and buildings in the world. Craig Thompson has more on an artist capturing those silhouettes on a sketchboard.
Painting and drawing and making art is like an attempt to understand it, or at least, capture it at one point in time, and I guess to put something good back out into the world.
This is Gavin Snider, in his element, standing with his sketchboard, painting city scenes.
I live in New York City, so this is really what has, I think, really been the source of inspiration for my art for the past 5 years.
And here at the Lincoln Center Paul Milstein Reflecting Pool, Snider keeps his focus on the work.
I guess when I'm painting, I kind of have to shut out all that background noise, really say, okay, for this hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever I'm here, I'm going to really focus on one thing, try to accomplish this one painting in this one sitting. And it's beautiful because you are required to focus. You're required to sort of observe the things around you, take in the way the light's changing, take in the way a shadow's hitting a building, observe all the small details while also having the larger scene. It's really amazing. You come away from it almost like having had a sort of out-of-body experience, I feel like.
Snider moved to New York from Kansas in 2015, where he studied architecture and then worked as an architect while painting part-time. One of his first pieces was a public mural in downtown Kansas City.
The project I submitted was a billboard of all the buildings that had been sort of torn down over the course of Kansas City's history. Stylistically, somehow that led me to like what was my style for many years.
And while his background as an architect influences his choice of topic, it's more than buildings that interest him.
I think I'm sort of attuned or drawn to buildings in that way, but now almost as a backdrop to city life and the way that, you know, people move through the city. A running list of things I want to paint, different buildings, different landmarks, different places I need to go. And when I go there, I end up realizing that wasn't the thing I wanted to paint at all. There's something completely different that inspired me.
Here in New York, Snider utilizes a mobile sketchboard designed by another New York artist, Katie Woodward, which forces him into the unique position of painting while standing.
And I found that actually helps me engage in the world and also helps me sort of be a little more alert and also limits the time I can do this comfortably.
From murals to illustrations to client projects, he has his favorite New York spots to draw, including Grand Central Station.
Just one of those incredible examples of public architecture that has really stood the test of time and really, I think, has that perfect combination for me of this beautiful backdrop that was built by people and then people using it every day.
Look for Gavin standing and painting almost anywhere in the city. For Arts in the City, I'm Craig Thompson.
Neil Rosen is back with more A-list talent. He caught up with actor Ben Foster and director Barry Levinson to talk about their new film, The Survivor, and the incredible real-life story that inspired it.
Harry Haft, I'm a journalist. I covered your fight. I'm interested in your story.
Everybody knows my story. I'm the survivor of Auschwitz.
The Survivor, starring Ben Foster and directed by Barry Levinson, is based on the horrifying yet remarkable true story of boxer Harry Haft.
It says that you made a deal to survive by fighting. You're a traitor!
During World War II, Haft is forced to fight opponents to the death in a concentration camp for the amusement of the Nazis.
You fight until one man can no longer get up.
After the war, he immigrates to New York and becomes a professional boxer. But he's constantly haunted by memories and guilt and longs to find his first true love again.
My girl from back home, she doesn't know that I'm alive. But if my name is in the papers, I want to fight Marciano.
I will plaster your story all over the East Coast.
Barry, how did you first become aware of the story and what made you want to tell it?
Harry is a camp survivor, but he's basically dealing with what we now call post-traumatic stress disorder. And now we know about it. It's not like an event happens and then it's over and then you get on with your life. For many people, they just can't get on with their life without being haunted by the past. And it affects their relationships, if they marry, with their children and everything else. And I thought, well, this could be an interesting story to evolve.
Phenomenal dedication watching you in this performance, Ben. Tell me about losing the weight to play Harry Haft in the concentration camp, and how difficult was that?
You look at the photos of the camps, you see the documentary footage of the camps. When you see the bodies, and then you listen to the testimonies, it felt like the only way into this man was to drop the weight. It was suggested that we could do it digitally, and that just instinctually felt wrong and inappropriate and disrespectful to the survivors. Ultimately, lost 62 pounds for that sequence. And then we took 5 weeks off for the New York era where he's fighting Marciano and put on another 50.
Because you're Jewish, did you feel a certain responsibility to tell the story right and to play him in a way that he'd be proud of if he were still here?
I suppose it's with the understanding that survivors are still with us. They're still here. And certainly their children are still here. So rather than trying to make Harry proud, because I don't think it's necessarily a glorifying character study, it's a morally ambiguous story. And we wanted to have this world feel as lived in as possible.
This was a tough movie to watch. Was it tough to play him? And did it stay with you after shooting was done for the day or even when the production was finished?
It's always tricky to talk about this, Neil, because you end up sounding like a complete lunatic, and that kind of goes hand in hand with the job. So the best that I could say is if you're thinking about making chairs all day, every day for 6 months in preparation, when you stop doing that project, you're going to dream about chairs. So it took a little bit. This is not totally done. Still dreaming about chairs.
If there's one thing you'd like people to come away with after watching this movie, what is it?
Hope. It's something that I heard from multiple testimonies of survivors, was the hope of finding a loved one or spending time with that loved one was the very thing that kept them living another day.
No, I think what Ben said is very true, is that the hope that somehow in us that we have this belief that we can survive and somehow things will be better.
6 million of our people are dead. Why did you survive if not to live?
The Survivor is currently on HBO. With Ben Foster and Barry Levinson, I'm Neil Rosen for Arts in the City.
A new exhibit at the New York City Fire Museum looks at the valiant efforts of the department's frontline workers during the pandemic. Photographer Laura Fuchs takes us inside. For a lot of us, this time of year means spring cleaning. Personally, there's almost nothing I like more than organizing my closet. And it turns out less clutter might also make us happier people. Best-selling author Gretchen Rubin, who wrote the book Outer Order, Inner Calm, has some tips on getting started.
The first step, I think, is to think about, ask yourself, do I need it? Do I use it? Do I love it? Because there are things that we use that we don't love. And there are things that we love, but that we don't really use, but we love them. And there are things that we need, like maybe I live in a warm place, I don't often need long underwear, but every once in a while I need it, and so it's just nice to know that I have it in a drawer. But if you have something that you don't need it, you don't use it, you don't love it, you probably should give it away or get rid of it in some way. So I think that's a really good initial question.
Let's talk about some of your sort of simple tricks for getting started on this. I loved, for example, the X Factor, because I am always convinced I will run into my college boyfriend.
There you go. So the X Factor is, if you're trying to decide whether or not to keep an item of clothing, you imagine, if I ran into my ex, would I be glad that I was wearing this?
Exactly.
And if you're thinking, no, I really wish that I was wearing something else, it's like, maybe you don't want to keep that item of clothing anywhere.
I loved the 1 minute rule, and I'm using it all the time now.
Well, it's funny, I think of everything in the book, that's one of the ones that I've heard that people do use the most. And that's the idea that anything that you can do in less than a minute, you do without delay. So you hang up a coat instead of throwing it over a chair, or you print out a document and put it in the folder that it belongs to instead of just leaving it out on the counter. You put pens back in the pen cup. And this just gets rid of that scum of clutter that can sort of accumulate on the surface of life. Yes. And it's all things that are they're not difficult on their own, but they just make us feel weighed down when we walk in and we just see, like, stuff everywhere.
That is our show for today. Thanks so much for watching. A quick reminder to check us out on social media. We'd love to hear from you. I'm Carol Ann Riddell. See you next time on Arts in the City.